So there are different carbon removals technologies, and in some ways, typically broadly categorized between natural removal, nature-based removals, and technical removals. And all of them have a part to play. But for me, I think in many ways I've chosen sort of to go the path of technical removals, very much supporting all the efforts that are going into nature-based removals. And I think we should be doing everything that we can to remove carbon whichever way possible. But the reason why, for me, technical-based removals become really interesting is, one, I'm an engineer, so I reckon there's always a drawing towards technical bits. But if you look at the latest IPCC report, it does indicate that carbon removals, and especially technical removals, are going to have to become. We cannot run away from them, given the levels of emissions that we already are at. Even if we did everything else in terms of reduction, in terms of mitigating our emissions, we are so far gone in terms of the emissions that we've produced that we have to remove carbon from the air. Nature-based removals works well, but then again, remember, there's a lot of pressure on the land, so we cannot plant as many trees as we think we can because there's growing population. And so, as I said, those need to continue, and we need to keep all the efforts going in terms of forestation and all the other nature-based removals. But I think we find ourselves at a point where the only way to really innovate ourselves out of climate change is we have to embrace technical removals. And there's interesting technologies that are coming up, and people are really putting their minds and thoughts to how to go about this. We're looking at things like biochar. We're looking at direct air capture, and even within direct air capture, there's lots of interesting technologies that people are experimenting around. And then, of course, there's a question around how we store the carbon, and still very nascent, but now starting to think about are there ways that you can store carbon dioxide underground? In places where you have basalt formations and other type of formations that allow us to store carbon permanently. And of course, it's been studied for the last 10, 20 years. So there's lots of studies that show that this is safe, and it's a good way to store carbon permanently. And I think that's the other point to make around technical-based removals, is the fact that they actually offer us a chance to do permanent carbon removals. What I mean by that is, if you think about when you look at some of the nature-based removals, things like planting trees, while important, if you cut down the tree, then that's the end of that. That tree that has been storing all this carbon begins to release the carbon, and that offers us carbon removals for for a period of time. But then that comes to an end. We need to figure out what are ways that we actually permanently remove carbon from the air. And in some instances, technical removals actually offer us the one chance to do that. So. The other bit I will say around technical removals is, and at least I'm looking at this from the lens of being an African and trying to provide jobs, is that it's actually a novel way to provide jobs for our growing population. It's a new technology. It's new technologies. Africa has a chance to take up these technologies while they're still very new, and actually develop and keep growing them. And there's really no reason why we should not be seeing students in our universities developing new methodologies around these technologies, such as improved sorbents for direct air capture. Like, are there ways that we can utilize our geothermal power or our other resources to improve how direct air capture is happening? So, when I look at how much technology can be done, I see opportunities for our young people to grow, thrive, and actually become the engineers that develop and implement some of these solutions.